Hello. Realize I haven't been making videos for a while. Life was very, very busy for a while. I think I will do updates about life changes and lifestyle changes in a different video. Maybe soon, maybe not, I'm not sure. I realize I look like shit at the very moment. I just had it's my day off, and I'm also off tomorrow, and it was a very long week last week, and I've been very grateful to have just a very take it at my own pace and sit back down when I'm ready to sit back down because I didn't get a chance to all last week. So what I wanted to talk about was the reason I look all puffy-eyed and shit was, I've been deep in thought, as I need to be sometimes, a lot of today. Also, I could not sleep last night, and I think there was at least one night this last week that I was just up really late. And it was just one of those, I don't think I had room to process my thoughts and experiences, and needed to just be awake until enough could get mentally done. But I had a pretty big realization, and it makes total sense. It's just one of those things that's just it's like when a piece just falls into place perfectly, and you're just like, whew, whoa. It was one of those, and I was like, you know what? I think I would benefit from rambling, and it's been a while since I did this, and here we are. So, a question that I have been returning to lately, really recently, honestly, and this I think this last week made me kind of crystallize this very specific question to ask myself, and then I had trouble answering for a bit. I realized this last week that my anxiety is so much better than it used to be, right? My nervous system panic response is so much more chill than it used to be, and this past year, I've gone just so many strides as far as getting to a place where I'm able to catch my thoughts and feelings and responses to a situation before my nervous system would start kicking in and start panicking. And so there's so much less of the time that my body is spent panicking than for so much more of my life before that, right? Excuse me. Good old tall boy. Tall boy beers never used to make sense to me, and there was always that kind of trashy connotation about them. I think because it was so often looked at as the walking beer, the paper bag beer, and but the thing is, the last few years, when they started canning craft beers and ciders and variety and cool shit, and even the seltzers and shit, in tall boys at the gas station, I'm like, this is fucking perfect. And you know why it's perfect? Because it is perfect portion control. It's way better for me to get like 1 or 2 tall boys versus getting a 6-pack if you are someone who struggles with your consumption. Built-in portion control. I'm deflecting my own point of the video. So, excuse me. Let's switch this out real quick. So I was saying, like, my anxiety and my panic, my paranoia, is so much better than it used to be, right? I'm in such a better headspace. My nervous system is so much calmer, to the extent that there are medical ramifications and like reflections of this. Because I remember, like when I was very young, if I went to the doctor and had like my vitals taken, my blood pressure was always really low and my heartbeat was really high. And then I got into my early 20s and my blood pressure was low or close to like the normal average, and my heartbeat was always high. And then I got to my later 20s, when I had been drinking heavily and smoking cigarettes heavily for years, and I noticed that like I had surpassed the high, or I had surpassed like the middle regular, the normal, and I was like starting to be slightly above that, which in my mind was really fucking high for my blood pressure, considering it had always like been towards the low side. So, and that like really showed me that's like, oh, like the tension that stays in your body if you're, you know, abusing nicotine and alcohol. I'm seeing the ramifications of it, and I'm still in my 20s. And then I quit nicotine for a while, got back on it, but like it's been lower and more under control. And you know, I was sober for a while. It was super important for me. I came back to it because I wanted to find moderation. I failed a bunch of times. I feel like the last couple years I've been in a really great place of moderation, with exceptions. And to be fair, the exceptions were always environmental changes that led to ease of access. And in ways it's like, oh, right, I need to go through my thinking process with this again. And also very much age related, because just like my tolerance is lower the older I get, and the ramifications, like the physical ramifications, the hangovers are so much worse. So, you know, I had a teacher in college who said, you know, moderation in all things, including moderation. So, I'm still deflecting my main point. Did you know that I'm an avoidant attachment style? Avoidant and anxious, you know. Anyway, but I realized this last week, because I had 2 very specific situations where it cropped up, and I was lucid enough in myself, cognizant, self-aware, present in my body, all that good shit. And I watched my nervous system just completely fucking spike. Like I was, you know, backpedaling in a car that was suddenly about to veer over a cliff. It was like that feeling. And it was over minor shit. And for one, the immediate realization, like when I was in the moment and calming down from that response, was I'm so glad that I don't have like actual serious shit going on in my life the last few months that I do get regularly legitimately stressed out about, and that this minor fucking stress fucking spiked me. That was very helpful information, and made me feel really good about like the peace that I've been creating in my life and maintaining in my life. 2 very different things. Maintaining is a very different skill set. But I've been doing a better job of it lately, right? And that kind of reaffirmed that for me. But that being said, it's still too much of a response. It was just way too much of like a fight or flight response, and just like a whole panicking thing that like my body went into, and I was able to maintain composure. And again, these were not legitimately threatening situations. They were both stressful situations, but again, minorly stressful. And again, I'm grateful, right? I am so grateful that, within the scope of my experiences here recently, that like that's where it sits. Like those are the two most stressful things that happened this last week, right? But one of them, like both of them, like you sit back after you have like a panic response and you think through like, excuse me, what is like the worst outcome, worst consequence? Like, what was I afraid of in that moment? Excuse me. What was I afraid of that would be that bad? And in both situations, like, it would have been an awkward and unwanted outcome and consequence in worst case scenario for both those situations. It still would have been fine. I would have walked away from it fine, So that like it really forced me to come back and ask myself, why am I still having just these huge fucking like fight or flight panic responses, particularly in my nervous system? And it's definitely about certain things. And I get it that they're like deeply underlying themes, right? Whether it's a feeling of, I think both of them, one of them contributed to a feeling of getting lost, and the other one contributed to a feeling of, abandonment or needing to abandon. I wonder what the proper word for that is. There is definitely like a trauma pain and like a depth of reasoning that has to happen when you have to make the choice to abandon a situation. And I wonder if there is a word for that, and I just don't know what it is yet. And what's interesting is that it's still abandonment, and it still hurts you. So yeah, now that I'm done deflecting and I've spoken out what happened. So I was sitting here, and I finally realized it's because I eventually was able to kind of parallel both of those situations from this last week onto vaguely similar like subject matters of like what the situation was in the past that I've experienced with situations that I still have baggage because those situations turned out the way they did. And I realized like this is why you still are having this response, because you did go through situations where the simple point of, so one of the situations was a friend disagreeing with me in a belief, perspective, other people judgment kind of way that made me feel like if he knew completely where I was coming from, I would feel endangered. And I secretly am feeling endangered because of having this conversation. And I want to get better at being able to have conversations like that and being able to stay calm and knowing how to even move within it in a constructive way. Because nothing gets done unless we find common ground with what we're talking about, unless the situation is already dire. And if this situation is not dire, I have a lot of tools that I need to build. That being said, I have had situations where there were conversations or a conversation with somebody in my life who was a big part of my life, and I realized that I've absolutely had experiences where it hits a certain way when someone, say, responds to a certain thing in a certain way. If it kind of forecasts that they will no longer accept you, if you change from how you've been. I'm sure anyone who's had to come out in any kind of way knows exactly that tightness, that hold back kind of feeling I'm talking about. And I think this is just me realizing that maybe I haven't given that feeling and the experiences that I've had that have caused it as a response in myself. Maybe I haven't given that enough time. Enough time and enough credence and time to grieve. And recognizing how deeply scary that is on like a psychological, like body, nervous system survival level. If it's someone you're close to, it's someone you love, someone who's family or like family. And then one change in a conversation starts pointing to a direction that's like, oh my god, like if this, then this, then this, and if this, then this, and if this, and I realized that's the the internally toxic aspect of it, right? Is like if you start like creating a neuroticism around it and around that fear, but which I actually have done in the past, but I also have actually gone through that happening and lost people that I cared about and suffered consequences that were really hard to get through in one piece because of situations like that. And I'm finding that now, in so many ways, things are so good right now. My life is so peaceful right now. And I'm really grateful for that. And I know that requires work to maintain. And I love showing up for it as well as I can. And also this is part of me showing up for it, is realizing it's like, oh, I'm still having like these nervous system responses. Like, oh, this is my cptsd letting me know it's like it's time for another sit down and find the right textbook and open it up and get your notebook out, and I embrace it. But I just wanted to talk about like that kind of resonant, that nervous system response, and being able to take a step back and ask, and it needing to take a while, because I did not have an answer. I kept asking it to myself, like, why are you having such a big response to these things? Like, what needs answered in myself? And like that finally came through. It's like, oh, like sometimes it really is tied to loss and abandonment and exile, and then if you take it out to like intergenerational trauma inheritance and like epigenetic information, how many times have people who preceded me in my family, in my ancestry, in my bloodline, in my spiritual, the perennial life path that is humanhood, how many times have they been in situations like that they had to leave everything behind? and I carry that with me, and now it's time. Now I know what the answer is, and now I can figure out how to heal that and answer that call.